There's a type of confidence most people will never experience. I am not talking about that superficial confidence you gain after reading a self-help book or repeating affirmations in the mirror. I'm talking about something much deeper, much more dangerous. A confidence so absolute that it becomes almost psychopathic in its nature. A confidence that needs no validation, that doesn't tremble before criticism, that bows to no one. It's the kind of confidence that kings, generals, and ruthless leaders carried when they shaped the fate of nations. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to build this within yourself. But I need to warn you, once you understand this, once you internalize these principles, there's no going back. You'll never look at yourself the same way again. You'll never accept being treated as inferior. And people around you will feel this change before you even open your mouth. The first thing you need to understand is that ordinary confidence and psychopathic confidence are two completely different things. Ordinary confidence is what you see every day. It's the guy at the office who talks loud, who brags, who constantly needs to remind others of his achievements. It's the person who posts every small victory on social media waiting for validation. It's fragile, performative, and dependent. It only exists while there's an audience. Remove the audience, and this confidence vanishes like smoke. The person goes into existential crisis. At the first criticism, at the first disapproving look, at the first moment they're ignored. This confidence is a mask. And masks always fall. Psychopathic confidence is different. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't require applause. It exists independently of any external validation because its source is internal, unshakable, and completely safe. The person who possesses this confidence doesn't need to convince you of anything. Their presence does it. They don't need to prove their worth. They simply assume it exists and act accordingly. And here's the secret nobody tells you. The world adapts to this assumption. When you act as if you're already powerful, as if you're already respected, as if you're already untouchable, people start treating you exactly that way. Not because you convinced them with arguments or performances, but because you created a reality so solid within yourself that it projects outward and forces recognition. Let me show you where most people fail completely. They build their confidence on external foundations. They need their boss's praise, their friends' approval, social media likes, the admiring glances of strangers. Each of these things becomes a pillar supporting their self-esteem. And what happens when one of those pillars falls? The entire structure crumbles. They panic, crisis mode, depression. Why? Because they never built anything internally. They outsourced their value to other people. And now those people completely control how they feel about themselves. This isn't confidence. This is emotional dependency, disguised as self-esteem. Psychopathic confidence operates on a completely different principle. Absolute self-sufficiency. You become the only source of validation that matters. You define your own worth, and then live according to that definition, no matter what the world says. This doesn't mean being arrogant or disconnected from reality. It means having an internal core so solid that nothing external can shake it. When someone criticizes you, you rationally evaluate the criticism. If it's valid, you adjust. If not, you discard it without a second of anxiety. When someone praises you, you thank them but don't need it to feel good. When someone ignores you, you continue your trajectory without even registering the offense. You become impervious to social drama because you're no longer participating in the validation game. You're playing a completely different game. Now, how do you build this? The first step is brutal in its simplicity. You need to cut all dependency on external approval. And this starts with small actions. Stop posting every achievement on social media. Stop seeking validation in every conversation. Stop adjusting your behavior to please people who don't matter. Start making decisions based on what you want, not on what will make others admire you. This will be uncomfortable at first. You'll feel anxiety, a void where the dopamine of approval used to be. But it's precisely in this discomfort that true confidence is born. You're detoxing from a drug that's controlled you your entire life. Each day you resist the temptation to seek external validation. You strengthen your internal core. You begin to notice something extraordinary. You don't need their approval. You never did. And the moment you fully internalize this, You become free in a way most people will never experience. The second principle is what I call internal calibration. Most people anchor their self-esteem in external metrics. How many friends they have, how much money they make, how they're perceived physically. These metrics are always changing, always outside your control, always making you anxious. Psychopathic confidence anchors itself in a completely internal metric, your own evaluation of yourself. And here's the tactical secret. You have the power to define that evaluation. If you wake up today feeling like a 5 out of 10, you can consciously decide you're an 8. Not in a delusional way, not denying reality, but recognizing that value is a social construction, and you have as much right to define yours as anyone else. This isn't arrogance. Arrogance is overestimating yourself in a fragile way that crumbles under scrutiny. This is psychological strategy. You're reprogramming the internal narrative that defines how you move through the world. And when you start moving as someone who sees themselves as an 8, as someone powerful and valuable, people start treating you that way. They don't know why. They just feel something different about you. A presence, a certainty, an authority that wasn't there before. And they respond to it instinctively. Now let us talk about something that goes against everything you've learned. Your weaknesses are liabilities. They're weapons. Most people spend their lives trying to hide their imperfections, compensate for their deficiencies, pretend they're something they're not, and that's exactly what makes them weak. Because when you hide a weakness, you give it power. You broadcast to the world that this weakness has the power to destroy you if exposed. And people, consciously or unconsciously, will use that against you. Psychopathic confidence does the opposite. It exposes the weakness first. It owns it completely, recontextualizes it, and transforms it into something that can no longer be used as a weapon. If you're short, you don't compensate with artificial posture or aggressive behavior. You simply exist as someone short who is absolutely comfortable with it. And what happens? Height stops mattering. If you're socially awkward, you don't pretend to be extroverted. You operate within your style so confidently that awkwardness becomes charm, becomes authenticity, becomes memorable. Look at historical figures of power. Churchill was fat and alcoholic. Napoleon was short. Lincoln was physically strange. None of them tried to hide it. They owned their characteristics so absolutely that these characteristics became part of their powerful identity, not a weakness to be exploited. Here's a practical exercise that will fundamentally change how you operate in the world. Choose one characteristic of yours that you consider a weakness, something you normally try to hide or compensate for. It can be physical, social, anything. Now, for the next week, you're going to do the opposite of what you've always done. You're going to mention it naturally in conversations, without shame, without apology. Custas a fact. If someone tries to use it against you, you're going to smile and agree without any defensiveness. What you'll realize is revolutionary. The weakness loses all its power. People are disarmed. They don't know how to react to someone who's completely comfortable with imperfections. And their confusion transforms into respect, because deep down, everyone is trying to hide something. And when they see someone who's not playing that game, someone who's so secure internally that they don't need to fake perfection, they instinctively recognize genuine power. Now let's destroy the biggest illusion of the modern era. Social media. Every day, millions of people wake up and immediately start comparing themselves with edited, filtered, and completely fabricated versions of other lives. They see perfect bodies, exotic travels, seemingly infinite successes, and they feel small. They feel inadequate. They feel invisible. This is the most efficient trap ever created to destroy genuine confidence, because you're comparing your complete reality, with all its flaws and mundane moments, with the carefully selected highlights of other people. It's a competition you can never win. Psychopathic confidence recognizes this for what it is. A complete illusion that doesn't deserve a second of your attention. That person posting perfect travel photos is probably in debt and unhappy. That influencer with a perfect body is probably using drugs, filters, and possibly eating disorders. That entrepreneur showing infinite success is probably 2 months from bankruptcy. Nothing you see online is real. It's theater. It's performance. It's propaganda. And when you fully internalize this, when you truly understand that all of it is fabrication, you stop playing that game. You stop posting for validation. You stop measuring your worth by likes and comments. You simply exist and act in the real world, where real results happen, where real power is built. Do this exercise. Uninstall your social media for a week. Just 1 week, observe what happens to your mind. In the first days, you'll feel anxiety and addiction being cut. But after a few days, something extraordinary happens. You start comparing yourself only to yourself. You stop measuring your progress against illusions. You begin to see clearly what really matters in your life. And when you return to social media after that week, if you return at all, you'll look at it in a completely different way. You'll see the fakeness, the performance, the pathetic need for validation in every post. And you'll realize you never want to be part of that again. This clarity is the first step to confidence that can't be touched by the digital world. You become immune to comparison because you're no longer playing the game of appearances. You're building something real. Let's now go to the deepest level. Complete elimination of fear. Fear is the invisible chain that keeps most people trapped. Fear of judgment. Fear of rejection. Fear of failing. Fear of being exposed. Fear of being ridiculous. Every decision an ordinary person makes is filtered through these layers of fear. They don't speak their truth because they fear criticism. They don't pursue what they want because they fear failure. They don't behave authentically because they fear rejection. The result is an entire life lived in compromises, in half measures, in comfortable mediocrity. Psychopathic confidence kills fear at the root, and it does this through a systematic process of You start small. You say something slightly controversial in a conversation and observe that nothing terrible happens. You make a choice based purely on what you want, not what others will think, and realize the world doesn't end. You get rejected in something and discover that rejection is just information, not a judgment of your worth. Each of these small exposures to fear weakens its power. Eventually, you reach a point where criticism doesn't affect you, where rejection doesn't hurt you, where failure is just feedback. You become emotionally armored not because you don't feel, but because you understand these feelings don't define you and don't control your actions. Here's a brutal truth most people never accept. Opinion is not power. When someone criticizes you, when someone judges you, when someone speaks badly of you, all of this is just noise, sound waves that only have the power you give them. Psychopathic confidence recognizes that external judgments are irrelevant to someone who's already defined their own worth. If criticism is valid and constructive, you use it to improve. If it's just envy, insecurity, or malice, you ignore it completely without a hint of emotion. You develop what I call strategic indifference. It's not coldness. It's not lack of empathy. It's simply the ability to not allow other people's emotions, opinions, and judgments to control your internal state. You become like a rock in a river. Water flows around, but the rock remains unshakable. People will try to provoke you, test you, destabilize you. And all these attempts will fail because you're no longer playing their game. You're operating on a completely different level of existence. Let me give you a final exercise that will consolidate all of this. In the next social situation you're in, you're going to do something radical. You're going to be completely authentic without caring about the reaction. If you think something, you'll say it. If you want to do something, you'll do it. If you disagree, you'll express it without softening, without apologies, without trying to please. Just raw authenticity. What you'll discover is liberating. Some people will distance themselves. Let them. They were never really your allies anyway. Some people will challenge you. Let them. Your indifference will disarm them. But some people, the right ones, will respect you more than ever. They'll see something in you they always wanted to have. The courage to be genuine. And these are the people who matter. You will realize you spent years molding your behavior to please people who didn't even like the fake version of you that you were presenting. What nonsense. What waste. Psychopathic confidence frees you from this prison. You become who you really are, without filters, without masks, without apologies. And the world, eventually, adjusts to this reality. Now, Let's talk about presence. Psychopathic confidence isn't just a mindset. It's a physical way of existing in space. It's how you enter a room. It's how you move. It's how you occupy territory. Ordinary people enter a space trying not to bother, trying to fit in, trying not to call too much attention. They become small, invisible, forgettable. The person with psychopathic confidence enters a space as if it already belongs to them, not with performative arrogance, but with calm and absolute certainty. Every movement is deliberate. Every step is intentional. There's no rush, no hesitation, no apology. You simply exist so completely that people have no choice but to notice you. This isn't something you fake. It's something that emerges naturally when you've truly internalized the principles we've discussed. When you no longer need validation. When your weaknesses don't control you. When fear doesn't limit you. Your own physical presence changes. Your body relaxes because there's no more defensive tension. Your eyes maintain contact because there's no more shame or insecurity. Your voice becomes deeper and controlled because there's no more anxiety. All of this happens organically as a result of internal transformation. And people feel it instinctively. They can't explain it, but they know you're different. You're someone to be respected, someone to be taken seriously, someone with real power. There are people who will try to test you when you start operating this way. They'll try to provoke you, insult you, challenge you. This is natural. You're changing the social dynamic around you, and some will resist it. Here's how you handle it. You simply don't react, not with anger, not with defense, not with justification. You acknowledge the manipulation attempt for what it is and continue your trajectory as if nothing happened. This is devastating to whoever tried to hit you, because every provocation expects a reaction. When there's no reaction, when you remain completely impassive, the person who tried to provoke you is exposed. They revealed their own insecurity, their own need for control, their own weakness. And you revealed strength through silence. This doesn't mean you never act against real threats. It means you choose your battles with surgical precision. You don't waste energy on small provocations. You preserve your power for when it really matters. And when you act decisively, completely, and without hesitation. This strategic selectivity is a mark of true confidence. Weak people react to everything. Powerful people choose when and where to exercise power. You need to understand that this transformation doesn't happen overnight. Psychopathic confidence is built through consistent repetition of new patterns. Each time you act without seeking validation, you strengthen the muscle. Each time you own a weakness, instead of hiding it, you grow. Each time you ignore a provocation with calm indifference, you become stronger. It's a process of neural reprogramming. You're replacing years, perhaps decades of conditioning that taught you to be dependent, performative, and fearful. And you're installing new circuits that operate in self-sufficiency, authenticity, and fearlessness. This requires daily practice. It requires constant awareness. It requires catching yourself returning to old patterns and deliberately choosing the new path. But over time, these new patterns become automatic. You no longer need to consciously think about not seeking validation. You simply don't need it. You no longer need to remember to own your weaknesses. They're simply part of you without shame. You no longer need to decide not to react to provocations. You genuinely don't care. When this happens, when these qualities become your fundamental nature, you've transcended. You're no longer faking confidence. You're confident in its purest and most powerful form. Here's the final truth that closes everything. You always had this power. Psychopathic confidence isn't something you acquire from outside. It's something you unlock from within. You were born complete, self-sufficient, and fearless. It was years of social conditioning that taught you to doubt yourself, to seek external validation, to hide your imperfections, to fear judgment. All you're doing now is removing these layers of conditioning and returning to your natural state of power. You're remembering who you were before you learned to be small. This journey isn't about becoming someone new. It's about rediscovering who you always were, under all the layers of fear and insecurity that were imposed on you. And when you complete this journey, when you finally reconnect with that core of absolute power that always existed within you, something extraordinary happens. You realize you can never go back. You can no longer pretend to be small. You can no longer accept being treated as inferior. You can no longer live a life of compromises and half measures. You've become something different, something more complete, something the world cannot ignore. And that's the true definition of psychopathic confidence. A transformation so deep it becomes irreversible. A change so fundamental it redefines not only how you see yourself, but how the entire world sees and responds to you.